Hello and welcome to Asiatic. My name is Debudu Shaha, and in today's editorial explain session, we are going to talk about this article. The article which surfaced into today's the Hindi newspaper, titled India Needs a Second Home for Asiatic Lion. The important facts from this article have been noted down by our expert team, and we have made a holistic article like we do in every session every day for you, for all those aspirants who want a ready-made answer material content. The title of our content is From Conservation Success to Conservation Security. Once again, from conservation success to conservation security. Second home for Asiatic lion. Same, but giving you a better idea, better picture of the topic. So, though we have seen that in till last year also, we have not seen a direct question on species in mains. Those species remain an important part in UPSC Prelims examination, but not mains. But that does not make this article less important, because we have seen in multiple times, just in case of vulture also, we have seen there has been references taken from these kind of species to draw a holistic question on overall environmental aspect. The same has been done for this UPSC model question also. You can get a fair idea once I read for you all. The question goes, successful species recovery requires ecological resilience rather than mere population growth. In the context of Asiatic lion, examine why establishing geographical separated population is essential for long-term biodiversity conservation. You get it? Though the idea is taken from the Asiatic lion, we get a fair picture of it just because we are reading the current affairs related to it, and as well as the question. But the first part of the question is purely like the question which was asked during vulture cases. So, without a further delay, let's get started. And yes, this article is going to help you for GS paper 3 under the section environment in the mains. As well as it can be traced down to governance. The idea can be traced down to governance and can be used in ethics case studies also. The first and foremost idea, why in news? To get a fair context of the article. It is in news because India's Asiatic lion population has somewhere increased to 891. From that we will decide or we'll see in shorter moment now. But it is now around 900. But the absence of second free ranging population poses a long-term conservation risk in place. And the second is conservation success must evolve into conservation security. Now it's a high time that this success should be capitalized into security through ecological resilience. Once the context is set, now we can draw introduction for our answer writing format. The introduction should be a short crisp, giving a fair idea of the question. A single site lion population in the Gir landscape remains vulnerable to disease, disaster, and genetic bottlenecks. A clear and absolute idea and fair introduction about the topic. Now, before jumping onto the body or knowing the core idea of the topic article, let's see what all constitutional and legal dimensions are attached to this topic. The first would be Article 48A under DPSP. State shall protect forest, wildlife, and the environment. Therefore, this case becomes important from constitutional perspective. Article 51A subclause G, fundamental duties. Citizens have a fundamental duty to protect wildlife and the environment, again portraying the same concept, same idea, same essence. Next, we move on to concurrent list. We see wildlife conservation is a shared responsibility of state and center. And last, we get to see Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, which primarily deals with legislation for wildlife conservation and for the protected areas. Now, once we have seen the constitutional and legal dimensions attached to the topic. Let's now see the reasons behind the population recovery. But before that, let's see a table. The table which portrays the data of early 1990s and current data. In and around early 1990s, we had only 20 to 30 lions remained in India, which is now into 2025 was approximately 891. Again, approximation of 900 lions. That's quite a big achievement from both the government and the citizen. But what were the reason behind this population recovery? Let's see that also. The first can be read through the idea or can be seen from the idea of legal protection. From those Wildlife Protection Act and multiple other act, we get to see there was a restricting wildlife law preventing hunting and habitat loss of this species. The next we see, not only from the legislation side, legal side, we got to see the same amount of intensity from the community participation also, in form of community participation also, where local support somewhere strengthened the process, which again gave a conservation outcomes. The next was habitat conservation. Protection of Gir ecosystem ensure suitable habitat. The next, a subpoint of legal protection, though should be written separately only, was anti-poaching measures taken by the government or multiple other agencies. Effective surveillance not only by the government but also by the local community, which reduce the illegal wildlife crimes. And the prey-based improvement, that is also quite important factor for this kind of recovery or increasing number of lions. Increasing herbivorous population ensured a secure, sustainable food security for all those lions. Now, once we have seen the growth or the recovery, now let's discuss why there is a need for second home for this Asiatic lion, which is solely precising in the Gir area. The first is single population risk. It somewhere points out that one catastrophe can threaten the entire single species. Because of what? The second point, disease outbreak. A geographic separation somewhere links the epidemic which spreads now and then in these areas, which will ensure that both the segregated population are safe from each other, so that if anything goes south in any of the region, the other can somewhere neutralize the position. The next is low genetic diversity. There is a reduced inbreeding and improves it somewhere improves the adaptive capacity, and it somewhere promotes or somewhere pushes for climate resilience. We can get an idea that multiple habitat somewhere minimizes the not only epidemic spread, but it minimizes the disaster related risks. Let's first say earthquake or a volcano, not a volcano but flood, anytime happens or any natural calamity happens in the Gir region, then we are assured that if again anything is going south for any causes of natural disaster, there is another part which is kept safe. Another, metapopulation approach, because scientifically managed population improves the long-term survivability. Now, once we have seen that the second home is absolutely needed, now the next question which will come into your mind or the question will ask is, why only Kuno National Park? Why not any other national park or any other place? Kuno National Park because of suitable habitat. It is somewhere having a compatible habitat for the Asiatic lion which they require for thriving. Next, it also have a adequate prey base which will again fulfill the demand of all those lions who would be residing over there. Sufficient prey support sustainable population. The large land scope. We see a extensive forest somewhere enables natural territorial behavior which the lion shows. Village reallocation. The Kuno National Park will somewhere have the least effect of reallocation of human because of reduced human disturbance, which will again have a enhancing factor in habitat quality, which will indirectly or directly affect the habitat restoration because scientific improvements have prepared for the ecosystem and long-term trailing. Because of comprehensive management support and successful reintroduction of multiple cases, we see Kuno National Park the appropriate place for the second home of this Asiatic lion. But if all these things are so good, why the article is pointing out certain challenges to it? Now let's see what are the challenges associated with this idea of reallocation, second home. The first is political resistance. We see a state level concern delaying lion reallocation, primarily from Gujarat. Is it valid? We will that see in a short while under Supreme Court's judgment of 2013. The next is federal coordination. We see a weak center state cooperation which somewhere ultimately hampers the core idea of implementation of reallocation or the implementation of second home of lion, Asiatic lion. We also see a science policy gap in place, where scientific advices and judicial order till now remains unimplemented. It is as clear as that. The next is habitat concerns, where debate over sustainability of alternative site is now and then coming to the headline. Though at the one side we are speaking of, or we are telling that Kuno is the appropriate place for this kind of reallocation or second home, but some major critics says no, that is not the case. It also has operational challenges associated with it. In case of monitoring, disease control, habitat management, somewhere is a resource intensive, and we know already cheetahs have been introduced in Kuno National Park. And the human dimension. Even if we see or speak that there would be minimum human intervention, we cannot reduce it to zero. Therefore, conflict mitigation and community acceptance is very much important, which is currently not at par with Gir. Now, once we have seen the challenges, before drawing a holistic way forward, let's see what all judgment or the judgment which Supreme Court has delivered during 2013 related to this. Supreme Court has clearly stated the conservation of animals should be science driven, and especially Asiatic lion are national heritage, not any state's asset. Therefore, the concern which is raised by some state is not at all appropriate. The second, it has also categorically pointed out that a second free ranging population is very much important for ecological essentials, or at most important. And it has somewhere also recognized, the court has also recognized that delay in somewhere implementing or translocation of this species, especially Asiatic lion, will nothing more than it will increase its risk of getting extinct from the region, just like it was. Now, once we have seen the Supreme Court judgment, now let's see categorically what are the way forward that we can mention in our answer writing. The first way forward would be implementation of scientific translocation of Kuno National into the Kuno National Park. Once it has been decided that the second home is Kuno National Park, we should take adequate step so that the translocation can be ensured steadily, and it should be ensured at a fast pace. The next would be strengthen cooperative federalism for wildlife conservation. We know state-center relation is a dynamic process, but because of that, We cannot let our species, our Asiatic lion, suffer for that. Therefore, there should be a strengthening process which should ensure the translocation is smoother. The next is adopt technology-based monitoring and genetic management, because inculcation or inclusion of technology in today's world or today's society is pretty much necessity, so as to identify the problem at the early stage and to reduce its cascading effects. The next would be enhance wildlife health surveillance and disease preparedness. There should be adequate steps also. There should also be adequate steps so that the surveillance or proper surveillance is in place, so that any kind of disease outbreak can be again handled from the very beginning, which will ensure that we are disease prepared. The next would be promote community participation. Through how? Through incentives and ecotourism, because we know the action should not only come from one side, that is from the government. The equal responsibility is also with the community. They should also have the same approach, the same intensity. Therefore, to somewhere ensure that their interest is also aligned to this noble idea, we can incentivize them through ecotourism, which will ensure their economic sustainability. And at last, there should be development of a national metapopulation strategy for long-term resilience. Now, once a holistic way forward is done, we can now move on to conclusion section to draw again a fair idea of the answer writing into the conclusion part. The conclusion can go like this. India must move from population recovery to ecological resilience by establishing a scientifically managed second home for Asiatic lion to ensure its long-term survival. Again, India must move from, again, these 2 points are important, population recovery to ecological resilience. By how? By establishing a scientifically managed second home for Asiatic lion to ensure long-term survivability. This scientific approach somewhere aligns with the idea of Supreme Court also. With that, I would conclude today's session, and I hope that this session was indeed helpful for your preparation. And I hope after this session, this question becomes more familiar to you. It becomes ease to your eyes, pleasing to your eyes. If that is the case, I would also like you to like this video and subscribe to Rise IAS YouTube channel so that you get more updated videos like this. And yes, those who are wondering from where we can get this free PDF form, the free PDFs are available in Rise IAS website. I would again thank you all for joining the session, and I hope that you are preparing well.